guys, what's up? It's Debbie, and I am back with more True Crimes of Criminal Minds. Why am I wearing a mask, you may ask? Because this week's episode has a lucha libre in it, and they wear masks. I'm not going to wear it the whole time, because then I can't see, because I don't have my glasses on. But this is what a lucha libre looks like. Not this exact mask. The one we're going to talk about had a butterfly mask. But I just thought it would be fun to throw this on for a few minutes and say hi. How's everybody doing? I hope you had a great week. I had a pretty good week. Pretty much same old. But I am ready to get into this week's episode. This week we are talking about Season 1, Episode 19, Machismo. And it is set, if you have not guessed from the Spanish lucha libre, it is set in Mexico, which I've never been to, but I want to go. I've been to Venezuela, so I've been to South America. I haven't been to Central America. So let's get started. This week's episode of Criminal Minds is called Machismo, and it's set in Mexico during the 3-day Day of the Dead celebration. During Dia de Muertos, or Dios de los Muertos. I'm not good with Spanish. I know very little, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering these. Dia de Muertos, the tradition is to build private altars called ofrendas. If you've seen Coco, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they build private altars called ofrendas, and it contains the favorite foods and beverages, as well as photos and memorabilia of the departed. The intent is to encourage visits by the souls, so the souls will hear the prayers and the words of the living directed to them. These altars are often placed at home or in public places such as schools and libraries, but it is also common for people to go to cemeteries to place these altars next to the tombs of the departed. The episode starts with a young man named Miguel arguing with his uncle. Miguel is gay, which is very taboo in Mexico because machismo is everything in Mexico. And machismo is strong or aggressive masculine pride. And I guess the equivalent American word would be macho. So machismo is everything, and it's very, very taboo in Mexican culture to be homosexual. So his uncle demands that he leaves, but Miguel says, "This is my mother's house. Let her tell me to leave." His mother, Lupe, stands silent while Miguel's sister tries to get her mother to let him stay. As he leaves, there is someone watching the house. The next thing we see, Miguel's mom, Lupe, is sitting at a table in her house, and there's a knock on the door. And she answers the door. We don't see the person. She invites them in. We never see the person's face at all. And they're sitting and talking, and she's telling all about Miguel and her daughter, how her daughter wanted her to let him stay and whatever. So they're just chilling, and they're drinking tamarind water. Now, I'd never heard of tamarind water before, and this is going to be important later. Apparently, a tamarind is some kind of a seed pod, like a bean, I guess, and it's soaked in water, and it produces a drink. I think it's also used in cooking, too. So then we see Miguel's mom gets up from the table to do something, and then the person that's visiting her then starts hitting her and eventually kills her. And this is not the first murder of the kind. Mexican authorities don't believe that they have a serial killer because they don't believe that serial killers happen anywhere but America. They think that serial killers is a uniquely American phenomenon. The chief of the police had been to a seminar of Gideon's, and he convinced the attorney general to invite the BAU to debunk the serial killer theory. So, and you know how Morgan is, like, he's like, what? Why are we going down there to tell them that they don't have a serial killer? Because it is really kind of ludicrous if you think about it. Like, with all their expertise, they're going down there to say, oh no, you don't have one. When the chief of police, Captain Navarro, he thought all along there was a serial killer, and he told the attorney general that the FBI would be able to debunk the serial killer theory, but he really wanted them to confirm the serial killer theory. So they go to the scene of Lupe's murder, and they see 2 glasses on the table as if she was entertaining someone. The BAU thinks that she was drinking with a visitor that killed her, but Captain Navarro says that would be improbable because they were drinking tamarind water, a sweet drink. And he goes on to say that men don't drink tamarind water. It's a strictly female drink. Men drink tequila. Since this was a sexual homicide, they know the unsub is a man. Miguel is a suspect in his mother's death and is arrested. The BAU talk to him and realize that he's gay. And then they also talk to his sister, and she tells them about the person watching their house. And she knows all about Miguel, and she's very frightened for him going to jail because he will not be received well in jail because he's a homosexual. And she tells them that the man watching the house is Roberto, Miguel's boyfriend. And of course, then they have to go question Roberto, and they rule him out as a suspect. The BAU comes to believe that the unsub is posing as a nurse or social worker to gain access. Reed realizes that it has to be a man dressed as a woman because there's no forced entry. Every crime scene, there's no forced entry, which means that they were let into the house. So they realized they had to be doing some kind of ruse. And the fact that they were both sitting down drinking the woman's drink of tamarind water, Reed said, okay, it has to be a man disguised as a woman. They also wanted to look at men with a record of sex crimes, because sex crimes usually reoffend, and they figured that if they could find someone that kind of fit what they were looking for, that kind of fit the MO, that they could maybe figure out who the killer was. And in the meantime, there's another murder. So they kind of give the profile, they kind of tell the Mexican cops to look for men that have committed sex crimes before, and then they go off to this other murder scene. The murders had been once every 9 months. Now there's 2 in a 3-day period, so he's escalating. So they realize this is very urgent and they have to get this guy. While they're at the crime scene, Captain Navarro gets a message about a disturbance at the police station. The police had rounded up every trans sex worker that they could find. This makes the attorney general very angry, and she is extremely upset with the BAU. But Hodge tries to explain to her that that was not what they meant to happen. They didn't mean to go out and round up trans sex workers. So they decided to go looking for victims of a rapist, and they do a press conference, and then they kind of just canvass the general area of where the murders have been. And they find a waitress who had nearly been raped. He came up from behind and started to assault her, but she turned around and saw that he was wearing a dress, and she laughed at him and called him a pathetic woman. And the BAU thinks that that could possibly be the trigger that went from just R-ing someone to unaliving someone. I'm trying to use YouTube safe words, but I think you know what I mean. The next day, 7 women that had been R'd by this man show up at the police station. So Instead of like a murder board, you've seen the murder boards with all the pictures and the string and everything. They just put the names of all the R victims on the board. And they start to notice that the last names of the R victims matched the last names of the murder victims. All of the murder victims were the mothers of one of the R'd women. The BAU figures out who the next victim is, and then when they get to her house, she's not there. There's no unsub there. The house is completely empty. All the lights are on. They go into the backyard, and they see the unsub, and he is on the ground, rolling around in pain, and there is blood on his private area. And then all of his victims, including the potential victim that they were going there to save, they all kind of come out of the woods behind the house. And one of the victims say, he wanted to be a woman, now he is one. So that is Machismo. And I like this episode quite a lot. I didn't at first. I don't know why. I didn't really care for it at first, but now I kind of dig it. I don't know why. Some of these episodes have grown on me over the years. So now we are going to talk about La Mata Viejitas. I hope I said that right. La Mata Viejitas. And it means little old lady killer. So let's get into it. I'm gonna put on my Lucha Libre mask again. My stepdaughter gave me this. I don't know why she had it, but she gave it to me, and I've never worn it. It's just, oop, and it doesn't fit me. All right. La Mata Viejitas, the little old lady killer. Between 1998 and 2006, there was a rash of murders in Mexico City. In 2003, there were 24 murders, and although the actual count is unknown, it's believed to be at least 40 over the 8-year period. All of the victims were elderly women, and their ages ranged from 64 to 82 years old. There was no forced entry, so either the Vic knew the murderer or they talked their way inside somehow. There was no sexual component, and they were either strangled or bludgeoned, sometimes both. Then, before the murderer left, they would steal small things from the house of the victim, like cash and jewelry. And all of the victims lived alone. Are you seeing some parallels with the episode? This one is like dead on. Not all of them are going to be so dead on, as you've probably already noticed from some of the episodes I've covered. But some of them are going to be spot on, and this is one of them. Well, with a little twist, which we'll get to. The crimes were being committed during the day and in the middle of the week, usually on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. They called in international experts to assist, and this would become the biggest manhunt in the history of Mexico. I don't know who the international experts were. I'm assuming the FBI was there, and who knows who else. But it just says international experts with quotation marks. Someone saw a person in a red shirt leaving one of the crime scenes and gave a description. There was a composite sketch made as well as a bust of the unsub. And that was the only clue they had to go on. The police thought it must be a man dressed as a woman posing as a nurse or social worker. The description of the killer was 5'7", stocky build, close-cropped blonde hair, and a facial mole. The killer was never identified, and the case went cold. On January 25th, 2006, a boarder of Ana Maria de los Rejas Alfaro walked in to find Ana Maria dead, and he saw a person leaving the scene. He yelled for help. Who says there's not a cop around when you need one? Because there just happened to be a cop. in the neighborhood and heard him yelling for help. So the unsub was running in the direction of the cops, but did not realize it. So they detained them because it was sus. And then they went to find the source for the yell for help. And the person they arrested for the crime was Juana Barraza, and she had watched Alfaro leave the market and offered to help her carry her groceries home. Then she offered to do housework for Alfaro. So, Juana Barraza, I cannot roll my R's no matter how hard I try. Since high school, I've been trying to roll my R's and I can't do it. Juana Barraza, I can't do it. A woman. This one was a woman. That's the twist. And I didn't want to do her because she's a woman. And in the Criminal Minds episode, it's a man dressed as a woman. So I did my research like I normally do, and I looked on Wikipedia, and a lot of Wikipedia articles have a media section where it tells about movies made and books written and that kind of stuff. And they actually listed this Criminal Minds episode in Wikipedia. And then I watched a YouTuber called The Drunk Knitter, and apparently one day a week she does true crime cases. It's knit and true crime. And she mentioned this episode as well. So I feel pretty good about doing it now, even though they switched it up in the actual episode. This is the true story of what really went down. Juana Barraza was born in Hidalgo, Mexico, on December 27th, 1957, to a teenage prostitute that was the town drunk. She would do anything for a drink, and she traded 12-year-old Juana to an older man for 3 beers. 3 beers. This man tied her to a bed and ard her. He shared her with his friends. She became pregnant twice while she was with him. One ended in abortion, the other one she had a son. Her mother told the family that 12-year-old Juana had run away with this man. And the family believed her. And then they finally got suspicious. 5 years later, they finally got suspicious. And her uncles went and rescued her from this man when she was 17 years old. So from 12 to 17, she was held captive and used as a slave. Juana eventually grew up. She got married and was shortly married and divorced. And she was a single mom to 4 kids, all from different fathers. She never attended school. She couldn't read or write, but she worked odd jobs to support herself and her kids. She was a street vendor, and she did whatever kind of work she could do. And one of the ways she paid the bills was by being a lucha libre wrestler. Her professional name, oh, here we go again. Her professional name was La Dama de Silencio, or the Silent Lady. Lucha Libre, if you don't know, Lucha Libre means freestyle wrestling, or literally translated, free fight. And it's the term used in Latin America for professional wrestling. Since its introduction to Mexico in the early 20th century, it has developed into a unique form of the genre, characterized by colorful masks, rapid sequences of holds and maneuvers, and high-flying maneuvers. I really want to watch Lucha Libre wrestling now. When she was 35, she injured her back and couldn't wrestle as much as she liked. So she resorted to robbery, which then turned into murder. After her back injury, she became a popcorn vendor at the wrestling matches. At first, the police didn't realize that they had a serial killer, and they were scrutinized by the public for dismissing the evidence. They came to believe that the unsub was a man in women's clothing, and they rounded up, you guessed it, all the trans sex workers that they could find. They surmised that the killer was posing as a social worker, nurse, or some other government official. When she was arrested, she had a social worker ID, pension forms, and a stethoscope on her. After the bust and composite sketches were made, Juana did an interview about being a lucha libre, and it was televised nationally, but no one saw the connection despite the uncanny resemblance. Now, the thing that confuses me is that it says she was a close cropped blonde. She actually has red hair. I have seen part of that interview, but it's in Spanish, so I'm not going to share it with you because I can't translate it. But you can find it on YouTube if you look for it. The police found fingerprints at 9 of the murder scenes. 2 months after the murder that prompted the composite sketches, the police decided to fingerprint bodies in the morgue because they thought La Mataviejitas must have committed suicide because the murders had stopped. But there were no matches and the case remained cold. The police started staking out gardens and parks, believing that was where the killer was targeting her victims. There was a rumor that the police even paid elderly women to act as decoys, although there's no proof of that. On January 5th, 2006, Juana watched Alfaro leave the market, followed her, and offered to carry her groceries for her, not knowing that Alfaro had a boarder in the guest house behind hers. This would seal her fate. When police searched her house, they found an altar to Santa Muerta, the patron saint of criminals and drug dealers. That saint has a negative connotation, but some people see this saint as a wish granter, and the negative stigma of this saint is being lifted gradually. But if I am correct in my translation, Santa Muerta means Saint Death, because Muerta means death. Correct me if I'm wrong, Spanish people, but I believe that's what that translates to. She was found to be a psychopath with no remorse or empathy. Her motive was her lingering resentment of her mother. Her own mother died of cirrhosis of the liver, so she took out her frustrations on elderly women. And that, I can't get my head around that because her mom was like, I think they said in her 40s, early 40s when she died. And these women are like in the 60 to 80 year range. But I guess maybe she was pretending that her mom hadn't died and they were her mom and she just kept killing her mom over and over again. She strangled them with phone cords, stockings, a stethoscope, and anything she could find in the residence. She also used her bare hands, which is one of the reasons why they thought it was a man in women's clothing, because it takes a lot of strength to strangle somebody manually. But all her training as a lucha libre, she was muscular, she was stocky build, muscular, and she had a lot of strength. She was a disorganized killer, which means she'd not pre-planned the murders. However, she did hunt down elderly people. She admitting to killing Alfaro. But there's a discrepancy in the number she confessed to. In one place it said she confessed to Alfaro but none of the others. And then in another place it said she confessed to Alfaro and 3 others. But at any rate, she was linked to 10 of the murders by fingerprints. But the police believe that there may be 40 or more actual victims. On March 31st, 2008, she was charged with, I don't understand the sentence, and I don't know if it's because I don't understand the law or because it's another country, but this is what she was charged with. It says 16 charges of murder and aggravated burglary, including 11 separate accounts of murder. So Is it 11 or is it 16? I don't get it. But she was sentenced to 759 years in prison, the longest sentence in Mexican history. And she is incarcerated at Santa Marta Acatila. I probably butchered that too. She is 64 years old and will spend the rest of her life in prison. So that is it for Juana, Barraza, and Machismo. And I put some secrets in my last video for you guys to guess this topic, and nobody guessed. So I'm gonna do it again in this episode. So if you've made it this far, go back and keep your eyes peeled for the secrets. However, I think our next one is going to be another two-parter. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's a pretty big one. So I think it's going to be another two-parter. So that's all I have for you guys this week. I hope you enjoyed it. And remember, be kind to people, love your family, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, and please subscribe. Please, 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 please. 95% of my viewers are not subscribed. I need subscriptions. Please, 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 please. You're making me beg. I'm really embarrassed that I have to beg. Don't make me beg. Bye. Juana Barraza was born in Hill. I told y'all I was bad with Spanish. And I don't know any other languages. I know a little Spanish and I suck at it.